And to go back, like you kind of early days, you were shooting the band No Doubt, which everyone knows. You think you started working with them in like 1998, right?
Yeah.
How did you connect with them, and like how did you start photographing No Doubt?
It's I hope stories like this can still exist today, but I get a little skeptical because the world is just so different with social media and how easy it is to reach out or connect or DM somebody. Mm-hmm. But that whole relationship started, No Doubt opened for Pato Banton in Palo Alto, California at the Edge nightclub. And this was in 92. And I didn't know who they were at all.
Because they're like SoCal.
Yeah. This was their first show outside of Southern California. And me and my buddy my buddy Justin and I went to go see Pato play. And we're like, yeah, catch some reggae tonight. And then they opened and I was like blown away because I was like, wait, they're a ska band, but they're all over the stage. Their energy is crazy. And then after their set, Gwen and Tony were still together at the time. They came down to the audience. They're like making out and dancing and just like, I was like, these people are wild. Like, I love it. And I remember that they had said during the show, like, hey, our record is coming out on this date, which was 2 months from then. I went and immediately got it the day that it came out, and then I saw in the liner notes that there was a P.O. box, and I was like, so I just wrote a letter and just said, hey, if you guys ever need help booking shows in Northern California again, like I help out some local bands. Just left it at that. Did not expect anything. Thought that, I'd be put on a fan club mailing list or whatever. And I got a handwritten note back from Tony, the bass player, and was like, hey, thank you so much for your support. We're going to have a record release party at the Palladium in Hollywood. You should come down, keep in touch, and I was like, whoa, wild. Okay. Yeah. And I was like, Mom, Dad, can I like go on a Wednesday to Hollywood? I'm like 16. They're like, hell no. And so we kept in touch, and then they came back up again and played Santa Cruz and at the Catalyst, and it was billed as an all ages show. And so my friend Justin and I again drove over there to catch that show, and then it turned out they were like, nope, it's 18 and up. And I was like, what? And so Tony heard that. He happened to be near the front of the venue, and he came out and he's like, yo, meet around back in an hour. And there was like 6 or 7 of us that had all shown up, and he brought us all in. He's like, all right, here's the deal. You can be on the side of the stage. You can't go out into the crowd. And so that was the first night that like I ended up meeting the rest of the band. And so we just became pen pals for years, sending postcards. And then I said, hey, look, I want to put you guys in my zine once I started my zine in 94.
Because at this point, did they even have like a record deal or anything?
They had a record deal with Interscope, but they had not broken yet. Like 96 was the year that like it started getting huge traction for Tragic Kingdom, which was the second album that came out. So Tony said, we're actually going to be on this tour. It's the first of its kind. We're going to be up in the Bay. You should come out and photograph us and meet us then. And it was the very first year of the Vans Warped Tour. And,
wow.
And so I was like, here's some funny context though. So my brother and I weren't like, when we were growing up in high school, like college age, we like animosity, typical brother shit. By the time he got into college, it was like he's my hero, and like, but we didn't do much together in those years. And he was like, "Yo, I got us tickets for a Blues Traveler show in San Francisco." And it turned out, then Tony hits me up and he's like, "Yo, this Warped Tour show," and it was on the same night. So I told Tony, "I can't make it, but I'll send another friend. I'll send 2 friends. One of them will interview you. One's going to photograph you." And me and my brother just went to Blues Traveler, and I didn't go to that show at all.
Damn.
But then we kept in touch through that, and at this point after Powell, I ended up going to work for a travel guide company as like head of PR and publicity for them, and that company got bought, and it was going to relocate back to the Bay, and I was from the Bay, and I was like, I don't want to live in the Bay again right now. And so I set up 2 interviews. I thought I wanted to start working in the music industry, so I set up one interview at Interscope Records, and I set up one interview at another record label, and I fly down to LA. In that first interview, it's with the CMO of Interscope, like top, and he's like, hey, what experience do you have with music? And it was all very, I was in a couple bands in high school. I booked shows, this and that. And I said, but, I've really kept in touch with the guys in No Doubt over the years and watching their career. And so I think he called bullshit on that. And after the meeting was over, I'm driving to my next interview.
So this is a few years since like the early like the first,
So this is now this is 98. So
they're blowing up.
They're blown up.
Yeah.
And I got my Motorola brick phone
as
I'm driving from
that
one
gray
interview
one.
from that to the next interview, and my phone rings, and it's Tony, and he's like, "Hey, heard you're in town." And I was like, "Whoa, how do you know that? This is long before social media or anything like that." He's like, "Well, you were just at Interscope, and like they called to see if like I actually knew you." And I was like, "Oh, no way." And they're like, "So listen, we're in the studio right now recording, like come by and have dinner with us tonight." And so I came by there, and they were like, "Look, if you want to get a job at a record label, like we'll help you get a job at a label, but we need a full-time employee to manage our fan club, to do our publicity, to do our photography for behind the scenes. Like,
you're like,
you
hell
want that job?"
That sounds actually way cooler.
Yeah. So I literally moved down 2 weeks later, and then had that job for a while.
With that, yeah, because you were like, you're handling like the merch and like going on tour with them.
Yep.
And were you still shooting a lot of photos of them? Like obviously you have photos on your website and stuff, but how did you kind of balance that?
Yeah, so they had, when they launched their website, it's early days of the internet. So it was like 98, 99 when we're doing that, and there was an entire section of the website called Shark's Eye View, and so every week I would update that section with behind the scenes photography. So I was always shooting like in the studio, personal stuff that's going on with the band, and then on occasion I would shoot live shows too, and then that stuff would all be in there, and I just have an archive of years that, even as they were blowing up and they're on the cover of Rolling Stone and Spin and all that, there's all kinds of like huge photographers that have shots of them, but very few people that like have the access that I had.
Yeah, you have some amazing photos, and I love the photos because it's just like such an era. Even the photography for that era, it's like fisheye
everything.
Yeah, you have this really amazing picture, and I'll post it. It's No Doubt and Kurt Loder. Like he's and the band's not even really looking at you, and it's just Kurt Loder's kind of looking at you like. I'm guessing they were probably doing like an interview or something, and he's just like dead eye, like
No, I mean, caught some moments that like I never thought I would be in that situation or in that place and time, and I'd love to relive that stuff for sure. I hope they do a book someday with all photographers of all their photography, and I'd be honored to have a couple pages in that for sure.
And like looking back at those photos now, like what comes to mind for you, I guess?
Yeah, it's the era and the fact that like I grew up shooting skating first, and so there is that era where it's not, I was not anyone that was like groundbreaking or revolutionary. I mean, Spike Jonze was shooting, the Beasties with a fisheye too, but it was that era that those of us who grew up shooting skateboarding were like, whoa, this is fun when you shoot people through this lens too. And so you could definitely tell it's mid 90s, and I love that for it,
just the clothes and everything, and then even the style of the photography and stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, there was a period, right, where like you get into the early 2000s, you look back, you're like, oh man, that's terrible. And then you look back at it with even greater duration, and I'm like, oh no, this is quintessentially that era, so it has its place.
And how is it to like we talked about a little bit, but the Coachella, was it last year?
Yeah, it was last year.
They headlined, right?
They headlined, yep. And it was, honestly, it was a little bit, it was crazy. So they played 2 weekends. I came down the second weekend.
Because they hadn't played in like 9 years?
Yeah, 9 years as a band together at that time. And then before that had been 12. So like this was... I didn't go down that first weekend. So there was a lead photographer who's a famous, music photographer, and then a very close friend of theirs, which is Steve, who's an amazing fashion photographer. He shot as well. And when I went down, I saw in my head, I was just going to be, it's Matt Sharkey doing what I do artistically, and I was just going to have this backup archive. And then all of a sudden, like Tony and a couple of guys are like, all right, these are a couple of the shots that we need. And I was like, wait, Steve, are you main shooter? And like giving him everything. He's all, dude, I don't have anything to transfer tonight. Like, you're it. And I was like, oh, what? And so I thought that they needed everything like right after the show. And they had this compound behind the stage, and then they invited everybody like for their 30-year, Hish Plus plus history to this after party, and I never came outside of the production trailer to the party. Like Akko and Atiba are there, like so many friends are there from so many generations, and I never got to see a single person. I came out of the production trailer at 1:30 in the morning, and nobody was there, no security, no nothing. It was just me by myself, and I was like, wait, I guess I didn't need to do all this tonight.
Fuck yeah.
So I missed the whole party, but
yeah,
it was all good.
No, the photo was great.